Hello, Spiritual Center Spokane. This is Reverend Bonnie, and welcome to tonight's Tuesday night talk and practice. So, I am currently flying. I'm in air right now. And so, this is a pre-record. And as I know with everything, there is no time and space in God. And so, when this lands, it's going to land absolutely perfectly. And so I'm grateful for this technology that allows me to be multiple places at once. I say yes to that. So I am ending my trip here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I have been dog sitting and been up to Sedona and serving clients at a distance and writing books and doing my thing. And I am so grateful to be with you right here and right now. And so I want to share with you a little bit about what has been going on for me this past year. I haven't talked about it a lot, but a friend of mine suggested that I do. And so I will. I have been this past year going through a huge transition, an emergence, as we call in mysticism. Something is emerging within me that didn't exist a year ago. And I have been going through the meantime, as a Jan Le Van Sant wrote about 20, 30 years ago. It's been quite some time. But she wrote a book called In the Meanwhile or In the Meantime. And it is a book that talks about what happens when you have left one life and your new life hasn't shown up to meet you yet. And it is a really uncomfortable place to be at times. And there can be feelings of being lost and confused. And part of the spiritual journey is to allow all of those feelings to exist and to continue to be fully present and to move forward. And so, a little over a year ago, I lost a job that I thought I would be in until the day I retired. And it was a heartbreaker. And my heart was broken because the relationship ended due to a contract dispute. And my heart was broken because this dispute was with people that I loved and cared for and about. And these individuals claim to live a spiritual life, that that was a value of theirs, and yet on a dime was willing to lie and betray and not keep their word, that there was a dishonesty that took place between the leaders of the organization and myself. And it was heartbreaking. I could not believe that people who put themselves out in the world as spiritual could live so out of integrity. And I've learned a lot. I'm clear now that I'm not there because I'm not supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be here and doing what I'm doing now. But it was jarring. It was really jarring. And then I was in a long-term relationship that ended and it needed to end. But I also thought that that had more permanency. And so where I've been this past year has been deeply connected to my spiritual practice and uncertain on what's going on in the horizontal realm. Included in that is what's going on politically in our country. And so it feels as though the world is shifting, changing. So much is happening on the outside. And then I had the internal distress. So there's the internal and the external. And My commitment, as it's always been, has been to show up grounded in spirit, to show up grounded in love. And so that's been what I've been doing. But it has been at times incredibly uncomfortable. And at times I have forgotten, despite the commitment I've made to myself and to my practice, I have forgotten who I really am. And so my friend said, "Oh my gosh, tell everybody that because when a minister does that, then you get the opportunity to go, oh my gosh, that is such a normal part of the journey." And it is a normal part of the journey. And it's something that I am grateful to myself for being a stalwart and to allowing the presence of love and spirit to change and to shift me, which is good, while not buying into the external noise. So it's an interesting dance for sure. So this last week plus, I was in a place where I was calling a dear friend of mine and just saying, I forget who I am. I'm untethered. And she would say to me, that's perfect, which it is. That's where you're supposed to be, which it is. And she would say, this is part of the dark night of the soul. Now, I have gone through many dark nights of the soul, and this does not feel like that, but it is the process of an old being released and a new coming into the forefront. And I'm grateful for that. So I shared with you several weeks ago that I found this book, The Way of Mastery, in a little library that was by my house. And because it is so little, I can take it traveling with me and just throw it in my purse. So that's what I did. And this book is, my understanding is it's channeled, and I'm not a big fan of channeling, although I don't disagree with it in any way. And people who channel tend to speak the same truth. So this to me is truth, capital T truth, and it's laid out in a way that I like. I always like to see how somebody in their program or their way of thinking takes you on a journey from ordinary consciousness into expanded consciousness. And so this is about the heart, and the heart can be read as the spirit, as the soul, as the deepest part of our being. People use heart for different meanings. And of course, it symbolizes love. So this could be talked about as the way of love, and there is only one love, which is God. And so this is done chapter by chapter. And the first chapter speaks of the way, and I love the word the way because it um, implies process, it implies movement. And what we know about spirit is it's always moving. So, so the way is the way home, is what it says. It says the way that calls you home. So the first chapter is all about any and everything that we are doing, exploring, opening up to, is calling us home, and home being within to the divine presence of love that each one of us is. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is that you and I create our own experience, and some aspect of our multi-dimensional being does. And so there's a lot of things in my life that I say, I did not create that. There's no way I would have ordered that from the universe. But there is something inside of my soul that does. There is something inside of my being that reminds me of the allness and the onlyness of God, and that I am that and am aligned with that. So, so in that case, I am always co-creating or creating with the divine presence that's in operation within me. Then the third lesson is the power of forgiveness. And this last week, I have spent quite a bit of time with my journal, forgiving myself because all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, forgiving myself for all kinds of stuff, forgiving myself for believing in people, not in presence, like putting personality before presence. And so forgiving myself for that, forgiving myself for trusting in the wrong things, forgiving myself for um, thinking that life should be different than it is, forgiving myself for not seeing the patterns that exist that I now can see. So as I go through the whole forgiveness things, and I did page after page after page after page after page after page after page of forgiveness, there was an incredible lightness within my being, which I'm grateful for. The fourth lesson, which is actually what I want to talk about today, is about desire. And what happened for me, which is normal, is that I started noticing that desire was coming up in multiple different places in different ways. And one was through this book, and I love the way that they talk about it, so I'm going to read a bit about it. Another's through another book I was reading, which I will share. Another came through an online interview that I listened to. And so by the third time I heard desire, I thought, oh, I am going to start having a conversation with myself again about what I desire. Now, when I'm in that place in consciousness where I can't remember who I am, where I feel lost, that's that word of like untethered, where I feel like I'm in the goo of the butterfly, like that there is a middle that I'm in. When I am in that place, it's hard for me to desire. It's hard for me to connect to the desire that is happening through me. Excuse me. And I believe that that's okay. My attempt is not trying to fix anything because there's nothing broken. My attempt is to wake up to see where I'm to serve, what's mine to do, and who I can love, including myself. So the opportunity isn't necessarily to get out of this morass, to get out of the molasses, period, but is to trust that part within me that's being developed that will know how to get out of it. So I have always been a big fan of desire. And I remember, gosh, 30 years ago or so, when I was reading Catherine Ponder, and I came upon her describing desire as meaning D of the and sire father. So the word desire literally means of the father, desire. And I read that and I went, oh my gosh, when I have a bubbling up from within me, a guidance that says, I desire to public speak. I desire a new relationship. I desire connection. When there's a something inside with a desire, that is God nudging, pushing, prodding, showing me the next. And many of us have been taught in our religious upbringing that desire is somehow bad. And and there have been some metaphysicians that have spoken about wanting being attached to needing. And therefore, if you want something, it implies that you lack something, and therefore you're coming from a lack consciousness. I'm not sure about that, but I use the word desire intentionally because baked into it is the holy movement of spirit. So I use that word intentionally. So in this work, um, there's a couple things I'm going to read about desire because it is written in such a beautiful way that I love it and I embrace it. And one of the things it says is that if God had not desired to extend love, you would never have come into existence. Your very sense of awareness of self is the result or the effect of love. It is the very same love that birthed the sun and the moon and all the stars in every dimension upon dimension upon dimension of creation. That very love that desired to be extended is the very source from which you have been birthed. As you know yourself to be, you are the effect of God's desire to extend love. Like, how beautiful is that? So, I'm going to read a little bit more from this book because it just is special. Um, okay. You are a wave arising from the infinite ocean of love that is the presence of God. I am a wave that has arisen from the ocean of my Father's holy mind. And though two waves seem to appear separated by what is called time, by even 2,000 of your years, when seen from a much broader perspective, those waves have arisen simultaneously from the ocean surface. They arrive for the very same purpose, to express the simplicity, the innocence, the beauty, the creativity, the truth, and the reality of the ocean itself. Okay, there's a section that says desire is everything. Look closely and see if it is not true that for every action you have ever done, for every decision you have ever made, after trying to analyze it all, is there not underneath the energy of desire? Oof. Yeah. Desire is that energy which brings forth all waves of creation out of the depth of the ocean itself. And who among you has not felt conflicted about desire? Who among you has not been taught that desire is evil? Who among you has not been taught not to desire to be great? Who among you has been not taught that the desire for material comfort is some sort of blot on the spiritual path? Look well within your soul and see if this is not true. Have you not feared at times the welling up of desire within you? For as I look upon your plane, there are many who become paralyzed with fear just because they desire to have a bowl of ice cream. So afraid are they that if they give in to that desire, something in the ice cream will cause their body to bloat and their brain to cease functioning. For those of you in intimate relationship, marriage, or a commitment of some kind, how many of you have not carried the belief taught to you by the world that if you feel an energy of desire welling up within you when you look upon someone who is not your partner, somehow you have sinned against God? How many of you do not know the experience of trying to rein in the 10,000 horses, so sure that if you gave in to feeling that desire, that everything would run amok? And that your attempt to keep your life structured, rigid, and predictable would collapse and all hell would break loose. Yet I say to you, would you exist if God had feared the desire to create and extend love by forming you, at the same time giving you infinite freedom of choice? Without desire, look around. Not only would you see nothing, there would be nothing to do the seeing. Everything is an effect of desire. Come then to see that desire is not evil. It is not to be feared. It is to be mastered. Mastery is not control. For control, the need to control is an effect of the energy of fear, not love. Mastery of desire comes when you recognize that you are safe to feel whatever wave of desire might come up through your consciousness, because you decide whether or not you will act on it, whether you will bring it into the field of manifestation. For if you are to ever create as God creates, you will need to heal your conflicted perception about desire. You will need to transcend this energy of fear. So, it's fun to make lists of desires. Each one of us has different desires. I would say that none of us have the exact same desire list. There have been periods of time in my life where I have sat down and written um, 10 desires a day, just getting clear around what is wanting to emerge up from within me. And given that we are infinite beings in finite bodies, given that we are infinite beings and we're not here forever, given that we are infinite beings, there is this vast, 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 vast feeling. And we can pull it in and rein it in and become so narrow that that we contract ourselves too far. And so I find when I am too contracted, that making lists of desire helps expand, that that's a good thing. And so I invite, if this resonates with you, for you to play with and make lists of that which you desire. Yeah. And then I'm almost done reading this book by Sonia Cochette called Read Life Accurately. And Sonia Cochette is a um, intuitive. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, sometime, I took a weekend class with her when in Seattle. And it was spectacular. And she is really a lovely human being. And so I like when I have an opportunity to touch back in with her and the work that she is doing. And so I was reading her work, and she's talking about in order to do any kind of intuitive work for yourself or for others, you need to know who you are and to be attuned to your divine self. That you need to know who you are so you can feel your field and know that you are connected to self and connected to capital S self, that you are home. And so she talks in the book about the many different ways that we get distracted and that we give our energy away. And of course, the work of shamans is the work of bringing our energy back into our field that we have left behind somewhere else. So it's a gathering up of self. So she says in her work, in order to read accurately, it's important that we own is too strong of a word, but that we embody, that we are in touch with our own capital S self, our own God, infinite, divine self. And she says, she gives a whole bunch of different ways to do this. And one of these is to know what you love. And so I have been doing spiritual advising now since the 1990s. So 2000, 30, 35 years, something like that. And there are periods of time when I'm working with individuals who also are in that space of being lost and they don't know what is next for them and they lack clarity. And so I tell them, as I give them as a homework assignment, to carry a little notebook or a piece of paper in their wallet, a notebook in their purse or a piece of paper in their wallet, and to start writing down what they love. Because there's something about connecting with the energy of love, which is the energy of God, that allows transformation, a clarity, a way out of no way to be known. So she has down here a couple paragraphs on knowing what you love. And of course, desire comes out of love. Those two go hand in hand. So know what you love. Aside from difficult emotions, remember what you love and name it. Ask your spirit, ask your heart. This is a powerful way to read yourself accurately. You attune more deeply to your authentic self when you acknowledge and follow what you love, what you care about, and what makes you light up. Notice how the energy of love strengthens your body and calms your heart, brings you into the present, helps you feel more like yourself, and puts you into a peaceful flow. Maybe we can't always engage in everything we love, but when we engage in very little of it, we become heavy and confused, and we absorb negative energy around us. Love purges intrusive energies, emotions, and sensations that don't serve us from our system. Love acts like an energetic shower, refreshing our bodies, mind, and spirit. Isn't that a beautiful? That's beautiful. An energetic shower. An easy way to bring loving energy into your field is by simply naming what you love out loud daily. Even if you don't pursue what you love or cannot directly engage in things you love, it will still uplift and restore you back to yourself. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So, as I have been navigating this in between time, recognizing what I love, speaking to what I love, and recognizing my desire. My desire has been so spectacular. Those two things have been very, very helpful. And so I bring those to you today as practices. And we are going to begin. Oh, I think there might have been something else I wanted to share here with you. Oh, the other thing I've been doing is contemplating the question of what makes up my foundation. So I have been aware for a long time that part of my foundation is the experience of being American, a very big part of my foundation. And I can count on the Constitution, and I can count on the judicial system, and I can count on laws, and I can count on fairness and justice and all of this jazz. And that foundation, now there's more to my foundation than being an American, for sure. But it is a very integral part of me. And so as that foundation has been shaking, I have been asking myself, what creates my foundation? What is the foundation I stand upon? And so part of that earthquake was the work experience. Part of the earthquake was the relationship experience. And yet, this is the beautiful thing about God. And I know that you understand this, is that there's always both sides. There's always both and. And so as a relationship is ending, there are beautiful, lovely friendships that remain and intensify. So there isn't a loss in God, is what metaphysicians often say, and it's true. Einstein says energy changes form, but there's always energy. And this is true. That doesn't mean we don't miss somebody when they go. It doesn't mean our heart isn't broken. It doesn't mean a lot of things, but the question I continue to come back to is, what is my foundation? What creates my foundation? Great question. So, love, desire, foundation. Yeah, this is good. This is good. All right. Let's go ahead. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes and to ground your feet on the floor. And before we go into meditation, I'm going to have us get centered. And before we go into meditation, I am going to ask you, I'm going to speak words and ask you to answer. And this is based on Melody Beatty's work, is that she found that manifestation was quick when we were able to list 10 desires a day and 10 gratitudes a day. And I did this for years upon years upon years. And it is really beautiful. It's just beautiful. So there's no rules to this. If you run out of desires after three, repeat them again. Like just stay in the energy. We're just cultivating energy for ourselves. And I made that sound minimal, like we're just doing this, but it isn't a just. It is a wedging open of parts within our consciousness that have been closed. And it is a legitimate form of planting seeds for manifestation. And it does help us remember who we are when we're lost. So it's a lot of things. So with our feet planted firmly on the ground, let's take several big deep breaths. And again. Foo, 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 foo. Very good. And again. Oh, how lovely, lovely, lovely. So I'm going to say, I desire, and I ask you just to speak out loud what it is that you desire. And I'm going to do that 10 times. And then I'm going to do it for I am grateful for. And you just say 10 times over what you're grateful for. And allow yourself to feel these answers. So let's go ahead and open our heart chakra. Our feet are firmly planted on the ground. We're going to open our heart. We're going to open our gut. We're going to open our third eye for clarity. And we're going to open our crown chakra so divine presence is flowing through us. And go ahead and add your words after mine. I desire. 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 I am grateful for. 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 And I am grateful for. So let's sit in this energy of desire and gratitude. And if your mind wanders, bring it back to the feeling within and around your body of desire and gratitude. And if your mind wanders, bring it back to the feeling tone of desire and gratitude. And so now I will say a prayer, a closing prayer on our behalf. Divine presence, infinite source, only life itself. I speak my word right here and now for myself and for those who tune in to the YouTube channel to take a break from life and as they know it, from the doingness of life in order to learn, in order to receive. I give thanks for these individuals. I give thanks for my ministry. I give thanks that the presence of God, the presence of love, the infinite presence of the eternal good is right here and right now within me and within the individuals watching and between us. I give thanks that this love is infinite, that this eternal knowing existed before any one of us took form and will continue to exist afterward. For we are in the realm of spirit. And I give thanks that spirit guides and that form follows. And I give thanks that spirit guides and that our consciousness, our awareness communes and follows. And so I just give thanks for all of this good that exists in my life, in our life. I give thanks for this time together. And I just bless every single one of us who is involved in saying yes to the goodness and glory of God. And for this, I give thanks. And for another week, I am grateful. And so it is. Amen. All right, sweet friends. So my new website is almost done. And when it is, then I will let you know, and I will be back to writing blogs, and there will be information there on how to sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. So I send you deep, abiding love and know for you a joy-filled week. Love and blessings.